Well, hello everybody. Last couple days, some people's asked me what to look for in buying a dozer. A couple guys was looking at a skid steer or a dozer, which honestly a skid steer would be better in a way because you can do a lot more with them, but it's real handy to have a dozer around still. They just didn't know what to look for. And I've owned this one here since October 2020, and main thing I think I'd look for is the undercarriage. I put a new one on this one. It probably don't have an hour and a half on it. It's still got the paint on it. That's ITR aftermarket. New idlers, 2 new sprockets, new chain, and new pads. When I bought this in 2020, that undercarriage then was pretty shot, and I got max life out of it. And that one was an aftermarket undercarriage too, by Burco, I think it was. But you can see my pads, brand new, got a lot of life, like an hour and a half on them. The sprockets, if you look at an old dozer and the sprockets are sharp, pointy, chipping, that's of course them's done. I'll go show you my old stuff in a minute. Feel up underneath here, make sure them pins and stuff, they're not really worn. It's supposed to be round. And on these front idlers, if they're really worn, they'll have metal flowing right here, which that don't necessarily matter. It's just this right here. My old ones, they was real thin, and it was worn at an angle too. It was letting it pop off real easy. And my old ones, this was hollow too, right here in the middle, but this one's solid, which is better. And for some reason too, a lot of people like to cut this hole out right here a lot bigger to get the starter out, because the starter is in a very difficult spot to get out. It's got 2 bolts in there, and these, I think that's transmission lines in the way, and they took a torch, would always cut this out. Mine hasn't been, thank goodness. That's not a very wise decision. You just got to fight it to get it out, but don't cut that. And another thing, I don't know if you'll be able to see that down in there or not. This bracket right here, it's a big round bar that goes from this side to the other side. It holds the rails together. It's got 4 bolts on each side. All mine are tight and in there, which is good. Always look for that. If they're loose and broken, that might be an issue. And some of these dozers I looked at too, that was missing them bolts, they welded this bracket to the frame, which is a no-no. Take it off, re-drill it, tap it, whatever you gotta do. Don't weld stuff like that, fix it right. And of course all my cylinders, some of them leaked. Cylinders got repacked. Look at all the pins. The bottoms on these are worn. I need to take this bracket off, I forget what it's called, and have it welded up and drilled in new pins, get rid of a lot of slop. Look for cracks in the C-frame. This is a crack I welded up not long ago, repainted. It went from here to just underneath this cylinder. Not the best weld job. I had bad rods, but it's holding. Which it wasn't going to break off anyway, but it's been welded before that. Must have been a weak spot in these dozers right here, because just about every one I looked at was plated and welded. Not really that big of an issue. Of course the blade's in good shape. It's been re-skimmed once, as I can tell. No holes or nothing, so that's good. Cylinders over here all in good shape. This one And down here, which I got this guard on, you can't see it, but my bell housing is cracked. It goes pretty far. It goes down into here into somewhere, and it goes down. I hear that's a common thing with these dozers. Somebody attempted to weld it with nickel rod, and it broke again. It's cast. Cast is tricky. Cast, you really gotta take it out and heat it up, weld it, and put it in sand and let it cool down slowly to prevent cracking. It's not really a big issue, what I was told. Just run it like it is. And also, if you're looking at one of these, it's set up for logging. It's got the tree guards, limb risers, and the winch. Just go ahead and figure it's had a hard life. Logging dozers around here get abused. Luckily, this one is not too bad. You can tell it was used, but it's still pretty good shape for what it is. I've rebuilt this winch once. I need to buy new bolts and put more new bolts in it. It's a good working winch now. When I bought it, it come off of a farmer. It's set for a long time. He just used it to clean his fields out. It come from a farm not like half hour from here. I got it rebuilt, working, and make sure there's no leaks underneath it. This one's got a leak right there coming out of the transmission. It's slow. I thought it was a final drive, but it's not. There's a seal in the transmission I need to buy. That's a project for another day. And make sure you got all your bolts in it. I had to put 2 new bolts in this bar right here. Luckily the threads were still good. Check your rollers. This dozer's got 10 rollers underneath it. I replaced one a couple years ago. Those are $250 each times 10. If you have to buy them, that's ITR aftermarket. John Deere wanted $500 each for theirs. John Deere is a lot more expensive. Not necessarily better either, because it all comes from overseas. There, this sprocket's cleaner. See, this is my new sprocket. I don't even have the paint wore off yet. Kitty. And these rollers too, make sure they're good. This was froze up at one time before I got it, and the chain was dragging across it and wore this side out a lot more. It's fine for now. And start it up if you can. Check the oil pressure, make sure it rises. Mine runs to 40 to 50 psi idling when it's cold, which is pretty high. When it's running, it goes down to 35, 40, which is real good. And of course, make sure it don't overheat. Mine's got I think a 190 degree thermostat. Battery charges up nice. And also check for blow-by in it. What I mean by blow-by is make sure the engine is not worn out. Just take this oil cap off while it's running and just let it sit there. And if it doesn't move while the engine's running, it's good. Really worn out engines got a lot of blow-by. I think main reason's bad rings, letting pressure go past the piston down into the crankcase and causing blow-by. I mean, I've seen some engines, it'll shoot oil and vapor and everything out bad, which is not a good sign. This engine doesn't do that, thank God. And I replaced a head gasket on this over a year ago, and I got a look in the cylinders. It was in good shape at least. And this motor, I think, has been rebuilt once. Pistons didn't have carbon on them. Cylinder didn't have no upper ring groove from lots of wear. The sleeves still had good cross hatching, beautiful, no scars or scrapes or nothing. And on the top of the pistons, you can see it was etched in the top of the pistons John Deere. So it was rebuilt with a John Deere kit, which is nice. Probably cost a lot of money, but it was rebuilt right, it looks like, from what I can tell. Check all your hydraulic levers, and this T-handle's worn out. It needs to be taken apart and rebuilt, welded up and rebuilt. I think I'll do that next year. Many different things to look for, and check your fluids in the transmission. Make sure it's not burnt or nothing. Make sure it'll move. Sometimes when these dozers, if you test them out, when you go look at them, when they're cold, they'll function and do everything you want to do, but after they warm up, everything starts getting loosened up. They stop moving. I know somebody went and looked at a dozer like that. It was something to do with the transmission, and that was a 550 dozer. This is a 450C. I think it was to do with the pump or something, but it was worn out on their dozer they looked at. They bought it, and it cost $3,500 for the mechanic to fix it. But it was still a nice dozer. But just look all around the frames, make sure it's good, make sure nothing was MacGyver rigged up, it shouldn't be welded. And I've seen that a lot on these dozers. Just check all over it for cracks. Actually, I got something else I need to weld up on this dozer. It's not over here, it's right over here. This rollover protection bracket, whatever you want to call it, it's got a crack. It starts up here, goes down along this, down around the bottom, but I can do that another time. It's not that big of a deal. Also on these dozers, there's too much mud there. This big crossbar that goes from the other side, this side to the next, I've seen them bolts right there welded up to this bracket and this bracket to the frame. I guess those broke a lot. This is part of it here. It's of course buried in mud. This holds the front of the dozer together, the rails. I think there's 6 bolts that holds this together. I actually got one back there that's broke. I need to weld a nut on it and see if I can't get it out and put a new bolt in it, but it's not that big of a deal right now. But it seems like a lot of these old dozers, people just, if something broke, they didn't fix it right, they just welded it. That's around here anyway. You got a bunch of goofballs around here that don't like to fix things right. I've seen some pretty sketchy stuff. Luckily this dozer hasn't had that done to it. Somebody actually took care of it. Check your oil, make sure it doesn't have no fluid in it, like coolant. That's a bad sign. Or blowed head gasket, bad liner, you never know. But just many different things. Look them over real good, and if you can, clean it off. If you look at one that's got mud all over it, because people around here like to hide stuff like that. Just make sure you get a good look at it. I'll go show you my old undercarriage. Here's my old stuff. This pad here, you can see it's really worn down. That pinhole's oval shaped. Some of these right here are really worn. They got holes in them. The sprocket was getting caught in that, chipping the sprockets and course, binding the track up. The other track. It's my one front idler. See, it was really worn down. Had metal flowing on it. One bad cylinder. And there's the sprocket. This is the best one. You can see how sharp it was getting. It's got some chips missing out of it too. The other one, I don't know where it is. This one here was worse. Definitely got max life out of it. Same way with this. One of these had a big chip missing out of it. You can see this side had a lot more metal on it than this side. This was on the front right side. It was just a lot more worn. But I'll take all that to the scrap yard this winter. And here's the track pin. Yeah, it was in bad shape. It tried to come out many times. You can see the ends there. It's worn at an angle. It was catching on the rock guards and stuff, binding the track up. That new aftermarket undercarriage roughly cost $10,000, and that's not replacing the 2 top rollers and the 10 bottom ones. I think all that together, if I bought that, would have been another $3,000. The undercarriage, new undercarriage, is almost what I paid for the new the Dozer. I paid $14,500 for it. I got a lot of use out of it though. But that's about it. Just look them over real good. Make sure you can at least get on them and maybe work them a little bit. Make sure they all function right, push good, doesn't blow smoke, burn oil. Make sure it's got oil pressure. Make sure it doesn't blow by. And look the engines over real good, because if you have to go buy another engine, it's a good bit of money too. And if you buy one and have to rebuild it, make sure you take it to somebody that knows what they're doing. And if anyone's got any more questions, leave a comment. Thanks for watching.